Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world. Alan Clements here from Hawaii. October 9th, 2021. I hope this finds you well, wherever you may be. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for tuning in to my live stream and podcast as I see it. It's on SoundCloud and on YouTube, Lisbon, Apple, IGTV, a few other places. Today's sharing I've been sitting with it all night, all morning, just feeling what is true. And the title came up of Conformity, Enslavement, Conformity, Freedom, those three words. Enslavement, conformity, freedom, and the risk to be you, the risk to be true. Immediately as I hear these words in my heart and mind, they're real to the extent that we, I guess stating the obvious again, feel into the immediacy of a living definition of the meaning of these words. Risk, what does that mean? You, what does that mean? What does it mean to be true to oneself? What is freedom versus conformity? How much freedom do we have, truly? I know, just sidetracking here, some of the more demonstrative engagements of my life that have led to an expansion of my creative processes of identity, the risk to be more true, more connected, more in intelligence, if you will, more pixelation, more nuance, more non-conformity, less conformity, have been through dance, intimacy, sexuality, athletics, physical movement, reading, association with curious, interesting, unusual people, provocative mentors, guides, teachers, various psychedelic substances that challenge the structures of my own unrecognized cultural and psychological, if not existential, assumptions and conditioning. Meditation, my goodness, and I know you know this, but to voluntarily engage the sequestering of mind in a setting where intensive meditation is the priority, for the purpose of looking and feeling and engaging the edge of your own identity, your own capacity, your own emotionality, to further illuminate the strengths and weaknesses of character, of principle, of values, of ethics, of insight, of wisdom, of freedom. I know so often just being encouraged to sit in a meditative posture with legs crossed and arms placed downward with the hands either on the knees or cupped in the lap, in the simplest of activities, and encouraged to mindfully engage the simple process of breathing. In-breath, out-breath, the breathing of the nature of being alive, just simply being present with the phenomenology of the sensations of breathing as they come into the body, the simplest of acts. To grade, to evaluate one's own enslavement, one's own conformity, and one's own freedom, and the risk to be you, those 4 dimensions in the breath itself, and how challenging it is, and I know you know this, how challenging it is to feel, observe, in flow with the sensations of the breath coming into the body and the breath leaving the body, something so organic, so natural, so reoccurring, and yet the mind that we call identity, very difficult is it to stay in some intimate association with the desire to simply observe, to feel, to notice, to mindfully be in present time phenomena with the sensations of the breathing. Pretty revealing, if you will, to the equation of how free am I versus how enslaved am I. I'm not saying to corporations, large, small, and nonprofit, but how free am I to place consciousness where I want it, to then engage consciousness in a sustained way, in a way that I want it, so to speak, with I. And for what reason? What am I doing it for? And to do it again and again and again. It's interesting to me, this deep drive in the spirit to listen to the call of the instinct of freedom, and to make good on the promise of the Dhamma desire to liberate one from confinement and restrictions and obedience to false gods and teachers and prophets, and the artifice of misinformation. And how do we discern what is true, what is freeing, what is worthy of the risk to truly be oneself? How easy it is to love those who love you, as it was said. Even the tax collectors can do as such. But to love in the face of adversarial or complex circumstances, to be present in the face of complexity or adverse circumstances. The mind and the life and the hour and the minute of a political prisoner is a challenging proposition, where one is really challenged, obviously, how free am I to stay in fidelity to my conscience, my dignity, that although you torture my body, I'm just speculating, you cannot have my mind. That ability to truly choose one's presence, pretty radical. So when I use these words for myself of conformity, of enslavement, and of freedom, I wonder sometimes how active in the day can we be to refine the capacity. I know, coming back to the meditative circumstances, find the capacity to anoint oneself in present time presence with the state and the states of mind of one's own chosen, yes, that's it, one's own chosen mindful clarity. I want to be in peace. I want to be without stress. It's coming up for me on a repeated basis, spending so much time alone, consciously, in a kind of existential, spiritualized, human retreat, to feel and to listen, wanting to listen more intimately to the voices within. And so there's a lot of time meditating and watching the mind going from here to there, and then I place it back on the sacredness of the entirety of my interiority, my own mind, the intelligence of my biology, my psychology, and feel mindfully the intelligence of these intersecting forces called identity. I looked in the mirror last night on a moderate, low, medium dose of something that was very luminous. And I just looked into the mirror and asked, am I being true to myself? And what does that really even mean? Do I fear death? Who dies? What a convention that is to buy into the enslavement of the cultural embeddedness of aging. I'm looking at my face under these incredibly luminous states of mind, and there it is, dissolving, birthing, wrinkled, aging, diagnosed with what it's been diagnosed with, and yet here we are in this breathing entity of shared space. And I'm asking myself, really, are you enslaved? Where? Are you in conformity? What's wrong with conformity? Why do you assume conformity? It means a type of enslavement. Are you willing to disavow yourself from the conformity of fear, of greed, of time? I want to come back in a timeless way. Bring timelessness to the forefront of your presence. Choice is my question here, and how well do we abide in the power, the true living dynamic power of challenging enslavement. I think of my brothers and sisters in Burma right now, in the country of Myanmar, and the radicalization of an entity called Ming Online and a state administration council violently imposing upon a nation of people the totalitarian conformity of obedience. You must obey the ideology of me. And I ask myself the question, what could interrupt the flow of this entity's obedience to his own enslavement, where the power of his role, for whatever reason, is to enslave, to attempt to conform, and to enslave a nation of 53 million people to the obedience of self-denigrating behaviors. Cower from my need to violate you. Cower. And I wonder sometimes how I've inverted, I've inhabited, I've adopted the psychological ways in which historically the cowering, the totalitarianism, the conformity factors of consciousness have arisen in through my own DNA. And I wonder how intimately deep do I practice my democracy, my Dharma, my freedom. And sometimes when I'm a luminous and I'm meditatively sensitive and I'm really quiet and I'm looking through the lens of my own freedom, not the psychedelic alone, and there I feel myself and I'm asking myself, okay, really, 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 what does it mean to take the greatest risk at this time, not to postpone it, the greatest risk possible, to be true to yourself? What is your untapped, bursting, ready to relieve itself creativity? Are you living the hour, the week, the month, the day, the minute of your actualization? So this issue of conformity and enslavement and freedom and the risk to be you, it's all about this seeming, not all about, the physics of urgency with intimacy, with integrity, with sensitivity, with all the challenges. My God, the intelligences, the various psychological, spiritual, existential, emotional, numismatic intelligences right now converging in this moment And how well do we occupy our ideals as felt textures of realization? How well do I live? And I thought to myself last night, as I'm thinking to myself right now, looking into the mirror on this medium dose of illuminating clarity, why postpone anything? If I really look and feel, fear is a conditioned habit. If I'm mindful, I pierce, I dissolve, I relax that cloud illusion bank of conditioning, and all of a sudden I'm standing naked, like you, standing naked, breathing, singing, dancing, living, emoting in the freedom of anything is possible if I put my mind to it right now. And I just said, okay, what is it that you want to do, feel, say, create? I want to abide in the joy of a vision, making real on the promise of this ideal I have so deeply placed in generations of Dharma work in my heart, to the actualization of Arhat, a liberating presence as vocation from greed, fear, and delusion. The priority of that, the artistry of that, the majestic intimacy of living in that illuminating bandwidth of release, a living expression of Dharma in transformational action, where the vocation of your action is in non-conformity to what? To lobha, greed, moha, delusion. If we only knew, right now, is this a zone of terror or is this a zone of enlightenment? And how can I individually, in this choice-making moment, anoint that choice-making moment with the release from terror and the actualization of realization of freedom, the ability to breathe on my own and not fear the end of breath. And if I do dance with fear, to quiver with it, as my teachers would encourage us, to quiver in the vulnerability, in the nature, in the sensitivity of allowing that fear to dissolve into the invisibility of the consciousness that we're embedded. Don't chase it, release it. Open your hands to the power of non-grasping. This is just my way of talking about my own meditation. I hope that you can feel that and hear that, and I know that you probably know that and assume that. It's my only way right now of psychic survival, not that I'm fearing death, but of really processing the edges of what it means to breathe and live in the highest ideals of my Dharma. Isn't that the quest of what it means to challenge enslavement to conformity? Culture and society and politics and media and big pharma and big tobacco and big alcohol and big loot and big money and big government and totalitarianism and all the various men and women dressed in those totalitarian shackles of conformity to their own fear and denigration that lack imagination and spirit and wonderment and creative possibility, and mistake their totalitarian psychologies as democracy and freedom and what's best for us. To break those cultural shackles, right? Isn't that what life is? This wild dynamic of not just good and evil, of right and wrong, of love and hate, of greed and generosity and luminosity and ignorance, all the dualities of consciousness. We know that they exist. But what does it mean to make really good on your promise today? To be a disobedient citizen of ordinary, question the ongoing need to abide in ordinary. What does it mean to break out at every age of every level of confinement and say, no, I refuse to participate in my attachment to self-projected ignorance. Right there, if you could hear it. I know you know this. I know you know this. It's saying something so obvious but so subtle. Refuse to participate in anything being done to me. God is not violating me. Another human being is not confining me. Oh my God, she is, he is, it is. I'm embodied in breath. Out breath. In breath, out breath. Be so rad in your defiance, right? And equally as vulnerable as a teardrop in the ocean of pain. We are vulnerable human beings, emoting, crying, loving, doing all that we possibly can to unchain ourselves from the conditioned fears of being born into this wild, crazy topography called God and the devil dancing on every little molecule, everywhere, at every moment. Choose your goddess. Choose your God. Choose your Dharma. I cannot get out of my mind, nor do I want to get it out of my mind, any more than I want to get the oxygen out of my lungs. Dharma in a monastery was something that you breathe, they told us. You don't think about breathing. You don't think about eating. You don't think about it. You do it. In a monastery, everywhere, without walls, is you do it as well as you possibly can. That as well as you possibly can turns out to be a very rare vocation. We love people, men and women, boys and girls, adults, you name it. We love the animals, the trees, the birds, the wave. We love the God and Goddess in all things that aspires to evolve higher frequency, luminosity. That's the edge that we're playing on as light walkers, as Dharma, tightrope actors, anti-blamers. We are non-conformists to mandates. We don't listen to you, and nor do we even waste our time talking to you about not listening to you. You're not invited anymore at the party. You want to come in and blow in your second-hand delusional smoke. Okay, we got the message. We hang up the phone, as Alan Watts said. You just walk on, right? Learning to walk on, but how to stay in the intimacy, the radical fidelity. This is where I just love waking up and doing all that I possibly can to I mean, as you know, as artists, Dharma artists, loving artists, mother artists, to keep that sweet spot, that sensitivity, that F-L-O-W, that flow that you know that you're in when you're on a nice dose of the psychedelic with intimacy and the goddess and the beauty of love. And you're writing that book from your heart because you can hear it in your soul and you're singing it in your own awkward way. It doesn't have to be profound. It means the risk to be you. Coming right back to the enslavement, conformity. I would see nuns and monks in a monastery, sometimes 100, sometimes 500. Even we had moments where we had up to 5,000 and 10,000 men and women in the monastery living in silence, meditating. Every one of them, if you were ordained, had a shaven head. The women, the men, the boys and the girls, they wore their pink robes, their orange robes, their mahogany robes. They often walked barefoot. They owned no money. They had a bowl, a razor. They had a few medicines. And we sat in unison in a meditation hall with eyes closed, and we walked and we ate in silence, and we breathed in silence. But it wasn't silence at all. It was a dynamic interplay of boys and girls, men and women, renunciates, looking carefully at the edge of where God meets God and choosing freedom over conformity. Every one of us sat in a similar way. We were all nuns and monks. We're all yogis in this great wasteland of love, of hope, choosing the good, the true, and the beautiful. What does that mean? Non-conformity, non-obedience, civil, spiritual, existential disobedience, and the radiance of a unique, intimate freedom that's never been kissed, never been done, utterly unique. Sometimes I'm challenged to write and trust what I'm thinking, to write and trust what I'm thinking. I've given up preparations on even these live streams, and the tendency there is to be clear, to be ordered, to be punctual, to be smart, to be articulate, to be detailed, but not to be true to yourself. What does it mean to just basically lose it on the canvas of shared space and really say what you think and feel? Open yourself to the tantra of shared space that's unique, not we breathe together. We breathe deeper than together. We breathe even more inclusively than separate. Reinvent freedom. Isn't that the greatest gift that we have? In compassion and empathy and, of course, patience and kindness. And my God, how could I live today without generosity? The boys and girls, the men and women who are helping me and supporting at a time of need. Thank you from my heart. I humbly bow to that power in you that's willing to share and to see my own need. I want to give up being smart. I want to give up being clear. I want to give up being articulate. I want to give up being in conformity to any kind of conformity. There's something that's going down in the world right now that's so unimaginable, so crazy making. It makes us want to not believe in tomorrow. It wants us not to believe in hope and joy and love and freedom and a better future. It wants us to not believe. And guess what? We refuse to believe your misinformation, your propaganda. We refuse to live according to the mandate of your need for us to believe your fear, your porn, your lack of evidence, your lack of respect for data and research and science. We refuse to participate in the machinations of your devilish need to suck the infection from big pharma and call it profit and our well-being and our health. Hello, we don't belong to your club, dude. We don't live in conformity to your ignorance. We are not anti-anything other than stupidity. We learned that much in your corrupt school systems and your universities that made us live according to the lockstep of the corporate ethos, which is profit and domination over other. We refuse to live in your forever war of stupidity and violation and denigration and xenophobia and apartheid. We are confronting the totalitarian machinations of Davos. We refuse to live under the tent of your dominance. We're walking out. We never belonged. We're not clowns entertaining you from your fear. We are not anything to be seen or known in your rear view mirror. It's your dance. Be gone. The world is a profound place, and we're choosing to co-create our own small living ecosystems of hope. Maybe I'll go on about this tomorrow. I want to close right now. There's a part of me that wants to get to the beach because it's really stormy and really rainy for a Hawaiian day. And I want to really test my ability to walk without the rainbow as evident as it's normally there. I want to walk and feel the wetness and the rain and my heart and the break and the tears It's not easy, but I refuse to conform and live in the enslavement of my own unrecognized allegiance to the fear. I refuse to participate in my own self-degradation. I am going to live in the arhant metaphor of release into the unconditional engagement of transformational space. Why and how we're stuck in this existential sideshow, a carnival, something even deeper than the darkness of a bad, surrealist, imaginative nightmare that lusts and carves and kills and denigrates and tortures in the dungeons of one's own darkest fantasies. We live in that mess, but guess what? We see you, we know the language, we're studying the psychological fabric, we're understanding the spiritual architecture, we're seeing the psychological formations and the creations of totalitarianism and the constructions of dictatorship and conformity to those false lords and priests and teachers and pundits and leaders and oligarchs. We refuse to participate in enslavement. We are radicalizing our quest and the immediacy of that quest to open our hearts, to refuse to doubt the beauty of tomorrow, the hope on the horizon of our dream. Never give up the dream. Never give up the dream. Never give up imagination. Never give up wonderment. Never give up on the possibility of a better minute, a better hour, a better month, a better year, a better everything in this universe of betterment. Bhavana, the beautification, the betterment of totality. Isn't that making good on the promise of our yoga, our dharma, our light-walking spirituality? Making good on the promise of studying the colors of transformational beauty, anointing our uniqueness in the creativity of their expression, and through forms and book and dance and lovemaking and children and birds and swimming, and anointing life with each other's smell and taste and feel and bodies and minds and whispers and dreams and songs and poems. We are keeping beauty and art and wonderment and the dream alive, right? Are you doing that? Are you living your best moment? Or your best hour, your best day? Do not despair. This is how I talk to myself when I'm in a good space. Do whatever you need to do to meditate, to yogify, to anoint, to illuminate the flow of beauty in your life. Refuse to participate in forms of fear or conformity or enslavement. Dream big. More important, dream immediately. Bring on the nicotine, bring on the coffee, bring on the ketamine, bring on the MDMA, bring on the CB2, bring on whatever it is that you need to do to illuminate the soul of your own inner being. Release that soul from the conformity of should. What would I be? What would I say on the dance floor of today? Right? Lose it. Why not? So that you can fit into the coffin more comfortably. Oh, she was an obedient citizen of dictatorship. We'll give her a coffin and lie her out as a real comfortable stiff before the flies get to her. Good life, the good life, a self-help book on how to belong to totalitarianism, enslavement, conformity. I don't know about you, but I used to hide under the bed when I was a kid. And in that darkness, I would dream outside of that small little bedroom at the back of the trailer, out of the confinement of the forest and the school. And as I imagined life and dreamt and breathed into imagination, song and dance brought me out of the cavern of my own fear and self-judgment. Wow, someone says you can move your body in a way that's different than walking down the hall with your eyes downcast and your head in your mind, fantasizing as you're writing A, B, C, D, E, F, conformity. I will speak English exactly the way I'm told to. And because I can't speak it as well as I'm told, I'm going to fail this fucking grade, so screw you. I'm not going to live in the conformity of your system. That's not going to get you very far in life, Alan. A misfit, a rebel, a maverick in you. Release the creative wildness that only you can deliver. And yes, we have mentors. We have people that inspire us. But what are they going to tell you? They're going to put a little acid on your tongue, a little psilocybin, a little spray up your nose. What are they going to do? Oh my God, I've been delivered from the trauma of my inability to really see who I can really be. But now that you know you have your hands, your heart, your mind, your creative pulse, you've got your brush, you've got your computer, you've got your colors, you've got your food, you've got your dosing, you've got everything on the table and on the palette of your preferences. But what will you create? What will you say? How will you touch her when you make love today? Break the habit. Faster, harder, deeper, faster, harder, deeper, faster, harder, deeper. In breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. I can't wait to be a Dharma teacher and teach other people how to be free. Poser, do not look in the mirror on a low dose of acid and come away feeling you're a poser. Because if you do, drop that enslavement on the spot, wipe your face clean with good organic soap, and swear I'll never do it again. Release yourself into the naturalness of the deathless. This is how I talk to myself. Anyway, I'm going to conclude today with a short little writing that I did years back of a meeting that was transformational in my life. A Burmese political prisoner, 2 pages short. It's from my book, A Future to Believe In. I do think, and I've been told, it's the best of my books. It's now, I'm blessed, completed as an audiobook. My friend and colleague, Jeff Hellman, my audio engineer, is making it into an audiobook. I want to read reflection number 2 of 108 reflections on freedom, and it's called To Dream, which is really another way of saying I want to live in freedom. I want to be free. I want to give love to wonderment. It starts with a quote by Jean-Paul Sartre. We only become what we are by the radical and deep-seated refusal of that which others have made of us. And I begin by saying, a political prisoner once described his jail cell to me. It had no windows, no bed, no toilet, no light. He lived for 6 months naked in a black box with the keyhole as the only ventilation. He told me that he survived by using his imagination, his ability to dream and think out of the box of his own mind as much as the prison walls surrounding him. He said he started by thinking out beyond his anger, his outrage and fear. He began to think about the nature of the human psyche, which he saw as a complex network of conditioned imprints. He began to think about the nature of those imprints, and as he did, he reflected on the nature of propaganda, mind control, totalitarianism, and indoctrination. He began to think about how nothing stands on its own, how everything is interdependent, arising from conditions. He also thought about how conditions are preceded by other conditions, and so on ad infinitum. Life was, he concluded, a beginningless, immeasurable inheritance of interrelated constituents where everything is related in every way. It was here, he continued, with a deeper, more nuanced appreciation for mutual causality, that he felt forgiveness for his captors. They were, he reasoned, tragic victims of a particular programming. They were largely puppets, unaware, indoctrinated in denigrating structures inherited from a primordial legacy. This insight, he said, brought him some degree of compassion and joy and allowed him to dream more fully, with greater daring. As a physicist, he had some training in out-of-the-box thinking. He began to contemplate beyond this world, imagining the greater context, a universe without circumference. Further, he began to imagine other life forms and other dimensions in this vastness. He explained that he became so enraptured, using his imagination, that after a while it turned to bliss. Quote, "I know it sounds strange," he concluded with an ironic grin. "I learned how to be happy, not through meditation or day-to-day Dharma life, but from my ability to dream within the confinement of my black box." I asked myself, I conclude, can I dream like this today? I ask myself, can I dream like this today, every day, right now? And I do end with a quote by Anne Frank, one line that says, "Think of all the beauty still left around you and be happy." And I leave with a final note. If you choose, and if I forget, remind me, look in the mirror. Ask yourself, am I being true to you? Really true? If you're not, ask carefully why and how you are in denial, how you are in conformity, how you are in some form of enslavement. Equally, ask yourself with a radical smile of courage and hope and freedom and embodied freedom in action, what can I do today to dream out of the box of my own confinement? What will I say? What will I do with the power of a full breath? Start from where we are and keep alive the dream. Keep alive the enchantment of a better tomorrow by living in radical spiritual courage and mindful intelligence. I want to say today, but all throughout the day, what does that mean? To be truly true to the deepest instincts of your own heart and mind. So from my heart and from my mind to yours, have a beautiful day. Thank you for being in my life. God willing, see you tomorrow here at 9:30. Thank you.